Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 530 News on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Russ Riesinger.
And I'm Janelle Slade. An obscure Montana tax credit program approved by state lawmakers 4 years ago got its day in court today. The U.S. Supreme Court, that is.
Now, at issue whether religious schools can be excluded from government-backed scholarship programs.
It's a case with potentially far-reaching implications for church-state relations all across the country. Well, today's hour-long hearing showcased the divide between the court's conservative and liberal justices.
Q2's Jay Cohn joins us now with more on today's historic high court showdown. Jay?
Well, Jeanelle and Russ, it's safe to say that no one who was involved in establishing this tax credit program 4 years ago here in Montana could have foreseen this issue ending up on the plate of the nation's highest court. But when some Flathead County parents sued the state, claiming Montana's no aid clause violated their religious freedom, well, the U.S. Supreme Court was the ultimate destination. And that's exactly where today's showdown took place, with the eyes of the nation watching. CBS's Jan Crawford, the network's chief legal correspondent, was on hand in the court to witness today's hearing. While she admits it's a mistake to predict the outcome of a case based on oral arguments alone, she tells us the battle lines were clearly drawn.
But based on the arguments today, the conservative justices, and they have the majority on the Supreme Court, seem sympathetic to the idea that these parents should be able to have access to that scholarship money to send their children to those private religious schools. The liberal justices were skeptical and seemed concerned that a ruling for the parents in this case would kind of open up a Pandora's box and potentially undermine public funding for public schools.
Chief Justice John Roberts, fresh off a late night presiding over the impeachment trial in the Senate, posed sharp questions to both sides. Many believe he may have the swing vote on this case.
And he was pretty active during the arguments. He's a conservative, and this is a court that in recent years has been more favorable with a conservative majority to claims of religious discrimination.
The no aid clause in Montana's Constitution bans any taxpayer dollars from going to religious schools. It mirrors similar laws in 36 other states. Today, attorneys for the parents said such clauses were motivated by bigotry toward Catholicism in the 1800s. But the state's attorney said that wasn't the case in Montana.
Montana's lawyer in court today made clear that whatever may have motivated those state constitutional amendments in the 1800s was not the case in Montana, because it rewrote that in 1972 and actually had testimony from religious leaders and pastors who supported this amendment, saying that they were worried about government kind of interfering with their ability to practice religion.
Very divisive case. And as for when to expect a decision, Crawford told me she believes that will come in June. She says this new term for the Supreme Court features a full plate of contentious, controversial issues. In fact, she says it's the most she's seen in her 25 years of covering the Supreme Court. And those tough decisions, she says, just take longer to reach, frequently involving dissenting opinions, and just take more of the justice's time to make those decisions. Russ and Jeanelle, back to you guys.
All right, thanks so much, Jay.
The impeachment trial of President Donald Trump moving into its second day, with House managers delivering their opening arguments against the president.
The session began after a late night where the Senate approved Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's organizing resolution along party lines and did not accept any of the Democrats' 11 amendments. Well, today, House managers took to the lectern to begin making their case for why they believe President Trump's conduct with Ukraine warrants removal from office.
The president's lawyers say they have not filed a motion to dismiss the impeachment trial because they say they're confident they will win an acquittal. Both of Montana's U.S. senators talked publicly before today's session began.
I think that the House managers did a fine job of basically laying out their case during the amendment process. And love Adam Schiff, hate Adam Schiff. He's a talent.
This really begs a fundamental question as well, is should the United States Senate decide the 2020 election and overturn the 2016 election by removing this president from office? I put the trust in the voters of this country. They should have that say, not the United States Senate.
Democratic House managers have 24 hours over 3 days to present their case, which they're still doing. Then President Trump's lawyers will get 24 hours to present his defense. We'll have full coverage tonight at 10.
A Billings middle school teacher now faces drug charges after police allegedly found methamphetamine in his home last week. Sean Fritzler, a 6th grade social studies teacher at Ben Steele Middle School, has been placed on administrative leave following his arrest. Officers allegedly found glass pipes, syringes, a digital scale, and baggies filled with the substance that tested positive for methamphetamine. Officers also found a notebook filled with writing regarding drug sales on the kitchen counter. Fritzler shared the home with Mark Kramlich, a former Billings teacher who was fired in 2017 for poor performance. Now, both men, along with a third roommate, face possession of dangerous drugs and drug paraphernalia charges.
Billings police asking for your help tonight to find a missing Billings woman.
33-year-old Ashley Bauer was reported missing on Monday. Her family says friends last saw her on Christmas Day at a home in the 800 block of Avenue B. At that time, they say Ashley was carrying some bags and was supposed to go to a friend's home on the 400 block of 30th Street West.
Now, Bauer, who doesn't have a car, also doesn't have a permanent residence and frequently stays short periods of time with friends. Autopsy results for Selena Not Afraid are expected tomorrow from the Bighorn County Attorney's Office. Not Afraid's body was found Monday after she went missing on New Year's Day. Now, on Tuesday, County Attorney Jay Harris said his office will investigate. Not Afraid's family announced it will hold a service for her at Hardin High School on Sunday morning at 11. And many around the state are remembering Selena as well. Last night, the Miles City High School softball team, which includes Selena's cousin, came together for a memorial vigil. Selena Not Afraid also being remembered in Bozeman and Missoula as well. The Montana State University American Indian Council and the University of Montana Payne Family Native American Center both have candlelight vigils that started at 5 this evening.
Well, the city of Hardin will move forward to create a police force of its own instead of relying on the Bighorn County Sheriff's Department. In a 5-1 vote, the Hardin City Council formally established its intent last night. The issue has been part of discussion since the fall of 2018. The preliminary plan is for Hardin to hire a total of 7 law enforcement personnel. 1 police chief, 3 full-time officers, and 3 part-time officers. Between hiring personnel, buying equipment, and finding a location, it all could cost between $412,000 and $514,000 a year. Now, Hardin currently pays $490,000 per year to Bighorn County for law enforcement services.
Our biggest push is public safety with going forward with this process. The other push is trying to rebuild the reputation of Hardin, trying to promote some economic development, getting businesses back down here again, getting people to move back down here. It's kind of hard to recover from sometimes, but we're going to do everything we can to promote that public safety and bring people back.
Now, the city still has to find a location for that police station and apply for funding grants. The mayor wants to get the police force written into next year's budget by July.
The Montana Supreme Court upheld a lower court ruling today, finding that the man charged in the killing of a Broadwater County deputy can forcibly be medicated.
Lloyd Barris is charged with 5 felonies, including deliberate homicide by accountability for his involvement in the fatal shooting of Deputy Mason Moore in May 2017. Barris's son Marshall fatally shot Deputy Moore during a pursuit near Three Forks. Marshall was killed in a shootout with officers. Barris himself is accused of driving the vehicle. However, he was found unfit to stand trial and has so far refused treatment at the Montana State Hospital.
Now, following his diagnosis, the state sought permission to forcibly medicate him in an effort to get Barris to a point where he can stand trial. Last year, District Judge Kathy Seeley ordered Barris to take the antipsychotic drugs and said if he refused, the state could involuntarily medicate him. Barris's attorneys appealed that decision, but justices sided with the district court.
Now, this is not the first time Barris will be forced to take medication. Court documents show he was involved in a previous shootout and standoff in California in 2000.
He was found unfit for trial, but improved after being forced to take medication.
Well, the U.S. Department of Interior gave the green light today to construct the Keystone XL Pipeline across federal lands here in Montana. The announcement gives TC Energy the okay to put pipeline down across 44 miles of federal land in northeast Montana. The $8 billion project has been in the works for more than 10 years and picked up momentum with support of the Trump administration. The project still faces several court challenges. In a Reuters news report, TC Energy says it plans to start pre-construction work in February and could build the segment across the Canadian-U.S. border by April.
Two Montana conservation groups say they will sue the Trump administration over grizzly bears. The Sierra Club and the Center for Biological Diversity are upset with federal government plans to allow up to 72 grizzlies to be killed over the next 10 years to protect grazing cattle south of Yellowstone. Attorneys argue it's on the livestock industry to do more to prevent conflicts with the grizzlies. Their argument states the administration allows cattle to graze for cheap on public lands and say treasured bears deserve better. No word on when the case will be heard in court.
Well, there's more news from across our state on tonight's MTN 9 o'clock news. A Montana man takes a creative approach to farming with swimming pools and shrimp. Join me for that story and more tonight at 9 on the CW.
But first, still to come on tonight's 5:30 news, eat until you're full may no longer be the case when it comes to school lunch. We'll explain.
And in sports, Scott hears from Glendive product and former MSU All-American Mike Person starting for the 49ers in next week's Super Bowl.
And coming up in weather, it looks like maybe one computer model is showing we do have another shot at some snow in the morning, possibly rain tomorrow afternoon. We'll tell you all about it coming up in a few more minutes.
You're watching MTN News with Jeanelle Slade and Russ Riesinger. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Green. This is the 5:30 news on Q2, Montana's news leader.